Well, hello and welcome back to another review. Today we're gonna look at SSD. All there is to know about these drives, all that is important. There are quite many of them, different shapes, different speed, different features. I'm gonna try to cover all of that in a very tiny video. This is Ale Suggest, audio and video suggestions for the creative minds, and let's start with the video. So, there are basically three main categories when it comes to SSDs. One is the 2.5 inches, which is the drive that we all know about. Then we have the mSATA and the M.2 shape. Now, I'm not gonna cover anything about the mSATA because this has been replaced by the M.2 drive. So, this video is gonna be all about the 2.5 inches and the M.2 shape, although some of the things that I will cover will be similar for the mSATA drives, if not identical. So 2.5 inches is just the drive that we all know about, but the thing that is relatively new, so it's kind of difficult to master at the moment, is the M.2 shape. What is M.2? Well, it's referring to its shape. It's gonna look something like this, but it can be also a little bit different because M.2 can be an NVMe or a SATA drive. This means that this drive will use a different technology and will have a different speed. So you need to make sure which is the drive you're looking for, what is your machine supporting. So this is the number one thing. Do you need an NVMe drive or do you need a SATA drive? Now, as this was not enough, then you will need to check out different things as well. In the case of the NVMe, for instance, you will need to pay attention of the keys. For instance, your drive can be M, B, or B plus M keys. Now, what is this? It's referring to the notches. This little notch here can be one. It can be one, but on the other side, or it can be two notches actually. So it can actually be M key, B key, or B plus M key. You will also need to pay attention to the length. This can be 2242, 2260, and 2280. What is this referring to? Well, the first number, 22, it's referring to the width of the drive. So how wide is the drive? It's gonna be always 22 millimeters. And instead, the second number, 42, 60, or 80, is referring to the length. So it can be 42 millimeters, 60 millimeters, or 80 millimeters. This is, for instance, an 80 millimeters long drive. So this is an NVMe with M key 2280. In the case of the SATA drives instead, SATA 3 M.2, you will have only one key, and this will be B plus M. So it's a little bit easier there. And when it comes to the lengths as well, these are identical to the NVMe. This is why it's actually tricky, because these two looks almost identical. So 2242, 2260, or 2280. Even though you may have figured out what is exactly the drive you need, what is the key, and what is the length, you're not done yet, because there are some catch there. Manufacturers will focus on things that are actually not that important and forget to mention what is actually important in the spec sheet. For instance, speed, well, it's not really what you're looking for. What you're actually looking for is other things. One of them is DRAM. Is your drive gonna have a RAM chip built in it, or is gonna be DRAM-less? This is gonna make some difference because the RAM memory is much faster than the normal SSD memory. So for instance, you may have a drive that is got a chip for RAM, or a drive that is not got a chip for RAM. Well, this will make a big difference, so pay attention to that, and unfortunately manufacturers will not mention this quite often, but don't worry, I got you sorted. There is a video coming up with all my suggestions of the drives that I would recommend you. Another thing you want to pay attention to is the cell. The drives can be 4 different categories: SLC, MLC, TLC, and QLC, where C stands for cell. So in this case, for instance, it's single level cell, multi-level cell, triple level cell, quad level cell. What does this mean? Well, it means that in the case of single level cell, for instance, you can have only one single bit per cell. Multi-level cell usually refers to two level cells, so it's actually meaning that you will have 2 bits per cell, and so on and so forth. Why is this important? Because it means that your drive is going to be faster if you have more bits in a cell. Although the more bits you will have per cell, the less longevity your drive will have. So this is actually quite important, and it's not really stated that much into the spec sheets. So I would really pay attention to, if you need a drive that needs to last longer, I would not recommend a TLC, I would not recommend a QLC, I would actually recommend an SLC or MLC. And again, in the next video coming up, I'm gonna suggest you all the drives that have this feature. 3D NAND versus VNAND, where this is not really that important, simply because this is referring to which technology manufacturers are using to stack up the cells vertically in the case of a 3D NAND, or horizontally in the case of VNAND. So I will not pay attention to, just mind that Samsung usually uses VNAND technology and other manufacturers usually will use a 3D NAND. Again, no big deal, don't pay too much attention to it. Now the same rules apply for the 2.5 inches drives as well. Make sure that you're buying the drive that has got a DRAM or SLC, MLC. And there is another positive thing, is that the manufacturers usually are releasing the same drive in different shapes. For instance, this ADATA SU800 has been released in its 2.5 inches shape and also in its M.2 SATA 3 drive, and the specs are the same. So most of the times when a drive has been released under a model number, the specs are gonna be the same whatever shape you're buying. These NVMe drives can generate quite a lot of heat, so you may wanna pay attention on where the chips are stored. If you require these NVMe's to be stored on a laptop, well, then I may recommend you to buy something that has got the chips only on the top of the surface and it does not have anything on the bottom. Because if instead your drive is got chips on the top of the surface but also on the bottom, you may generate too much heat close to your motherboard. So perhaps I wouldn't necessarily use this one for a laptop, but this is definitely good for a desktop if you have a little screw here that is separating your drive from the motherboard. Now, most likely you will need some sort of adapter as well if you will need to clone your drive, or maybe you want to carry this around and use it as an external. The one I've got is kind of neat because it's got this latch on the top that comes right off, and then the bottom is sliding off as well, so it's revealing its M.2 connector here, so we can just pop our drive into the connector, push it, and then we can use the little pin that comes with it. It's like a screw, but it's not actually, it's just a pin that goes here. And then you will push the drive like so, and now the drive is secured. Now you may as well just pop the shell back in, and you will put the cover on the other side. There you go. That's your drive there. This has got USB-C, so it's coming with 2 cables. One is USB-C to USB-C, and the other one is USB-C to USB 3.0, so you have a choice there. You need to make sure you are buying the right adapter as well. There are a few things you need to check out as well, and it's really the same. You need to make sure this is actually for SATA or for NVMe according to what you're needing, otherwise it will not work. It's got the right key and it's got the right length. For instance, this drive is gonna allow me to use various lengths, actually all of them, because it's got all the holes here. So if I need a 2242, 2260, 2280, this will just work fine. And I will also encourage you to buy an adapter that does not require you any screwdriver or any tools. This just works fine. The only thing, you may lose this pin, but it's coming with like 4 or 5 of them, so it's not a big deal. Kind of like this one. Actually, I'm gonna link it right below. If instead you need an adapter for the 2.5 inches drive, then you will need something that looks like this. And it's a pretty straightforward connector. It's got SATA on one hand, and you would just pop this guy in like so, and you will have a USB 3 on the other side. It's pretty straightforward. You plug it into your laptop and you're good to go. I'm gonna link this adapter in the comment box as well. Now, it seems to be that manufacturers don't really want you to upgrade your devices, and instead they want you to just change your device. When I was trying to install the NVMe drive on my laptop, I found that the screw was particularly stubborn and I couldn't really remove it with any screwdrivers. It was like a very poor screw that was used there that it ended up being just completely busted. And so I had to buy this very useful tool, which is they call it a precision screw extractor. And the way it worked is that I just unscrew the screw. This was incredibly useful for me, and I'm gonna put a link in the description if you need one. I have bought many drives over the last few days simply because I was trying to get something that it was convenient. I had to buy different shapes and different manufacturers and different model numbers and few adapters as well. So if you actually need a suggestion for a drive for you, you don't want to spend too much time diving into the internet, I am gonna make a follow-up video and I'm gonna recommend you whatever are my findings and who these drives are for according for me. So please make sure to subscribe and to check out the next video coming up. I am not an IT guy, so these are just my findings after hours and hours and hours and days of shopping and researching information. So I want to put a disclaimer there. I'm just gonna try to share with you whatever are my findings. This does not want to be in any way an expert opinion. But you know, I hope to just help you out spend as less time as you can clicking on that mouse to find the right thing for you. So if this was helpful in any way, please press that like button, subscribe, comment, say thank you and hi if you want to, if you have other questions or if you have any more suggestions. I'm Aleloy, this is Ale Suggests, audio and video suggestions for the creative minds, and I will see you here very soon.